Hey guys, welcome back to Fundamentally Crypto, where I teach you how to navigate the cryptoverse. So in today's video, we're going to be discussing the difference between Moonbeam and Moonriver, and specifically how you need to view each of these tokens from an investment standpoint. And we're also going to be covering things such as the fundamental value offerings that these tokens have, and secondly, the price analysis, the staking, tokenomics, and also the viewpoints that the founders have, right? Derek, you made some very, very strong statements about both projects that I think we as a community can look at and draw value from that to understand, okay, how do we need to look at these projects and how can we invest our capital accordingly? So to be clear, I believe both of these projects will succeed in 2022. I think they should be an integral part of your portfolio, and that as the interoperability narrative develops, as Polkadot grows and scales, we should see both of these networks really, really benefit from user adoption, from the network effect, and they should be stellar performers in this coming year. Secondly, Derek also said that the majority of teams are building two projects for both networks, of which they will be maintained at the highest level on both. So he's given us feedback from the hundreds of projects that want to build on these networks, and they've made it clear that they are building two projects, right, for Moonriver and Moonbeam, which means that they will be maintaining both of these networks as they've stated. And if those teams are doing it, if the developers are doing it, you as an investor need to look at that and say, okay, wow, both of these are going to do really well this year. They're going to serve different purposes, but they both should succeed in this coming year. And that's how you need to allocate your capital. The value propositions apply to both networks, both Moonriver and Moonbeam. So specifically, Derek spoke about how existing smart contract platforms are designed to service the users and assets on a specific single chain. So think about it, the guys on Avalanche, they stick to their own chain. The guys on Phantom, they stick on their own chain. The guys on ETH stick on their own chain. But what Moonbeam and Moonriver is doing is they're providing cross-chain smart contract functionality. So this means developers can shift all of their existing workloads and logic to Moonbeam and extend the reach of their applications to new users and assets on other chains. So if you can imagine how this will look in the future, when Polkadot is fully, all the slots are taken, there's 100 projects specializing in their niche on the network, right? These projects from ETH or wherever they come from, because it will extend to other chains as well. But these projects will come and they'll get access to the entire Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem. And what that looks like is you have a thriving community, you have a thriving entire network of high profile projects that are producing the best quality data and service to the rest of the ecosystem. So new DApps will get access to cross-chain resources. So what that means is, a decentralized app will be launched, and immediately, just because they launched on Moonriver or Moonbeam, they get access to all the other 100 parachains and everything on ETH as well, that's been deployed on Moonbeam at the click of a button, and that is huge. And you need to understand the capabilities and the prospects that has for new apps that are going to be built on this network. So when you ask yourself, okay, but now why is Moonbeam and Moonriver launching on DOTSAMA, being Polkadot and Kusama? So they themselves stated that Substrate reduces the implementation time greatly. So secondly, they also said that Substrate gives them the ability to customize all of their applications greatly. And then thirdly, they said that the Rust programming language is pivotal because it provides safety and performance. And this goes back to what I said in one of my previous videos on the bull case for Moonriver, where the whole Polkadot narrative is based really on the brainchild being Gavin Wood. And he came from way back, co-founded ETH, basically built Solidity, built ETH in a very short period of time. And he moved on to build the highly scalable blockchains of the future, being Kusama and Polkadot. And so when you're looking at how these blue chip projects, Moonriver and Moonbeam, and why they chose Polkadot, you'll understand that it's for these reasons listed on the screen, that these guys are seeing the massive potential in this network, and so you should view it in that way too. And then one of the other reasons they gave is the people in DOTSAMA, and specifically Parity, the Web3 Foundation, and the vision of Gavin Wood, right? You need a strong community. You need people that are committed to the vision, that are not just going to jump onto the next hype train, right? These developers are committed to building the future of the cryptoverse, and specifically they're doing it on Kusama and Polkadot. So when looking at how Moonriver and Moonbeam plays a role in this, just look at the people they're associated with. Because if they're associated with people like Gavin Wood, like Robert Habermauer, I think that's his surname, these are like high-level minds in the industry, and it shows you that they're coming into alignment with the vision of these guys. And if you can catch the Polkadot vision, you'll see the potential of these investments. So a lot of people ask, okay, but then what is the difference between Ethereum and Moonbeam and Moonriver? So I just termed it BeamRiver for this presentation. But so Ethereum is still based on proof of work, and that's why you're paying extensive transaction fees, or partly why. And then Moonbeam and Moonriver focuses and is built on a proof of stake consensus mechanism. So that's why you get those nice staking rewards, which we're going to be discussing later. But firstly, that's the key difference. And then secondly, BeamRiver has an extensive set of on-chain governance features, which is extremely important. So if you look at the history of crypto, look at what happened with Ethereum Classic, and basically whenever a decision had to be made by the community, they had to fork the project, right? That's what happened with Bitcoin. That's what happened with Ethereum. So Gavin Wood and the Web3 Foundation realized, I mean, this can't be a logical way forward, and that's why they built Polkadot. The on-chain governance is next level. You literally vote as a community, and the entire network can be upgraded at the will of the community, which is amazing, and that's a very important part of the future of how these networks will develop. So one of the other value offerings are this concept of unified accounts. So remember how I told you that Moonbeam and Moonriver are EVM compatible. So what this means is you can use one account to access all the features with a single account and private key. So usually between different blockchains, you'd actually have to have like an account for AVAX, an account for FTM, an account for ETH. And it's just not a proper way forward. So what they're doing is you can literally have one account, and your assets can sit, for example, on your MetaMask account, and you can interact with everything on Ethereum, everything on Moonbeam, everything on Moonriver, and everything in the Polkadot ecosystem, which is a massive step forward for interoperability. And if you haven't been exposed to this before, you'll see how segregated everything is. And I can't see another way forward besides blockchains becoming interoperable. So another fundamental value offering is specifically the DApps that are being built on BeamRiver. So it's important to understand that these DApps, 99% will deploy on both, meaning they'll have a dual listing. So it's not like Moonriver will be left in the dust as Moonbeam scales, right? It's actually, you'll notice, but Moonriver gets everything first. All of the upgrades happen on Moonriver first. So that community thrives with all of these new innovations, and then Moonbeam gets it afterwards, right? And then secondly, BeamRiver is in the business of providing block space, so it's totally dependent on what the project needs from that network. So what this means is a project will come and they want to build on Kusama, they want to build on Polkadot, and they say, okay, what do you have to offer, right? And then Moonriver says, we've got X, Y, and Z. So it's not like if you only launch on Moonriver or only launch on Moonbeam, it's because one is inferior to the other. It simply means, one chain is suiting their needs better. So again, there's a case for both of them, and you need to look at it like that. So when looking at specific advantages of Moonriver, so firstly, it's faster, and which oftentimes means it's almost always better. So what I mean by faster is projects can roll out upgrades and things like that a lot quicker than on Moonbeam. And the reason for that is, Kusama has this nature of being a battleground, testing things. But again, it's not a test net. So you have to understand the software goes through a lot of other test nets before it even gets to Moonriver. So Moonriver is basically the end goal before, sometimes it'll go on to Moonbeam. But remember that the fact that you can roll out things quicker oftentimes means it is better. Secondly, it's the concept of a first mover advantage. So we've seen this with ETH where, ETH is pretty horrible to use, but why are they still the number one chain? They have the first mover advantage, and you mustn't underestimate that, right? Oftentimes, if something has a first mover advantage, even if they do have an inferior product, which in this case it doesn't, but even if they did, they will usually win. So that's important to take note of, and you need to analyze that and see how the market views this and how they trade this. And then thirdly, Moonriver is in the hands of the community. We're going to look at the tokenomics just now, but actually 100% of the tokens were literally distributed to the community, which is pretty crazy. And so that means there's no sell pressure from VCs and from the team. And then fourthly, there's huge liquidity incentives. And why this is important is big liquidity incentives means network effect, means users will come and use this, and ultimately it's good for the community and good for you if you're holding the token. And then lastly, projects will launch on Moonriver first, right? So we've seen this. Look at everything that's launched on Moonriver. There's over 80 integrations, which is huge, and that will just continue growing. So all of these projects launch on Moonriver first, and so again, those projects have the first mover advantage. They have that initial network effect. So don't despise what's happening on Moonriver. So when we look at the advantages of GLMR or Moonbeam, they specifically state that it has greater economic guarantees. And what this means is, if you want to run high value loans and things that are pretty much industry grade, it's likely that projects will focus more on Moonbeam. Okay. And then secondly, the success of Moonriver can guarantee the Moonbeam success. So we've obviously seen how well Moonriver has performed, and how well the projects have done that have launched on it. And it's sort of an advantage because it's a precursor to look at, okay, what's going to happen on Moonbeam. And then thirdly, the valuation of DOT versus Kusama. So DOT has around a 10x valuation versus Kusama, and a lot of people say you can expect the same valuation for GLMR versus Moonriver. I tend to disagree, which I'll discuss a bit later, but those are the main advantages. So this is now very important to take note of. So Derek Yu, the founder and CEO of the Moonbeam Foundation, made some key points which I want to discuss. So firstly, he said the main things being built now in the ecosystems are infrastructure. And why this is important is, a house can only grow and be built as high as the foundation is. So what I mean is, the strength of the foundation will determine the height of the house, and that foundation is infrastructure. So they are doing things like connecting Nomad, which is connecting the ETH mainnet to Moonbeam, and what this does is it paves a way for asset transfers between the two. So you can imagine things like MakerDAO and Aave being launched on Moonbeam and Moonriver, which they're in the process of doing. So understand that infrastructure is key to the success of the project. And then secondly, he said that things will move quicker now because of what was learned on Moonriver, right? So a lot of the community and projects that launched on Moonriver learned a lot through that, and so they can now speed that process up on Moonbeam and see both networks grow extremely quickly because of the lessons that were learned. And then thirdly, Derek said that the multi-chain narrative is going to be huge in 2022. So he doesn't just say this because it's in his best interest to do so, but you can see this if you look at things like Atom, Cosmos, to see how that's performing, and all the bridges, and now Polkadot. In the fourth point I mentioned now that there's a significant shift in the developer world. So, Derek obviously is a developer and he deals with them all day, and he says himself that 90% of the developers are looking at the space and saying there's no way forward without interoperability, and that's why they're coming to Moonbeam, why they're coming to Moonriver, and saying, we need to build on Kusama, we need to build on Polkadot, because it's logical. How can you just act in isolation? Things need to be connected, and things need to operate within one another. Fifth, he said that DOT will become like an AWS, an Amazon Web Services, where you have all the tools you need for Web3. And what he means by this is that the vision is to have something that looks like AWS, but it consists of Web3 services. So his belief is that Polkadot is really uniquely positioned as a place to build these kinds of services. Because remember, Polkadot is the layer 0. Then come all the other protocols that are taking a slot on Polkadot and Kusama. So now a project comes and launches on Moonbeam or Moonriver, and they say, okay, I need privacy, so they go to Fala. Okay, I need DeFi, so they go to Karura or they go to Akala. They need all these tools, and it effectively becomes like just a massive server that has all of this stuff on that you need to build your project. And then lastly, he said that EVM developers are going to come for everything they can get their hands on. And I fully agree with this. Once this ecosystem really gets cooking, you'll see all these developers come, because now they can port the EVM projects straight onto Polkadot, straight onto Moonbeam and Moonriver, and they'll be able to access everything in the respective ecosystems, which is extremely important. So one golden point which I want you to take note of is ERC20s, which are basically Ethereum standard coins. They'll be able to interact with everything on the DOT ecosystem. So basically developers will be able to interact with these cross-chain tokens as if they are local and as if you would find them on Ethereum. So this is the best of both worlds. So it can move, all these tokens can be moved between all the parachains in Kusama and Polkadot and still interact with everything on Ethereum. So just think about the ramifications of this, right? We know how big Ethereum is, and if they can come into our ecosystem or we can go into theirs, it just, the possibilities are pretty endless. And this is the core of interoperability. So this is called the XCM standard, and you'll see it in the staking sites and throughout the protocols. But this whole standard starts on Moonriver. So we just saw it launch on Moonriver, and again, this pushes on that point that Moonriver is getting it first, right? Remark is now integrating with this. Other DeFi protocols are integrating with this. So it shows you that the hype, the narrative, the first mover advantage now happens on Moonriver. And then thirdly, the golden point, he said that Moonbeam, just as a token in isolation, will push the interoperability narrative the whole year. And we know that crypto works in narratives. We know that things pump and they move as a result of the narrative that has been developing. Okay. And then lastly, the key point is that Moonriver is the leading indicator to Moonbeam. So you can look at Moonriver, look at how it's performed, and say this is pretty much what will happen on Moonbeam. And so yeah, it's very exciting for what's to come. So now we're going to look at the tokenomics, and I just want to highlight some key differences here. So as you can see over here, there's Moonriver, and then on the blue is Moonbeam. And I want to draw your attention to this up here. So you can see that 100% of the token allocation was applied to Moonriver, whereas in Moonbeam's case, 100% went to the community, whereas in Moonbeam's case, 53.5% went to the community, and the other 46.5% went to things like investments and strategic funding and founders and things like that, which is fine. But again, look at this. Moonriver is more of a community chain. Moonbeam is more of the industry grade chain, right? I support both, but again, look at these different personalities that they are developing. So the key points here is that Mover tokenomics is 100% allocated to the community. So think about this. Moonriver still benefits from the advice, early investing, and seed funding in Moonbeam, right? There's all this 46.5%, things like advisors, early backers, seed funding. All of this stuff is affecting the tokenomics of Moonbeam. But now you have Moonriver, which benefits from these different, funding and like capital and stuff. Moonriver benefits from that, but it doesn't affect the tokenomics, which is quite unique. So effectively, Moonriver is gaining everything Moonbeam has at the expense of Moonbeam tokenomics. Cool. So now we're going to discuss a bit of the price analysis. So what I want to highlight here before we look at the charts is that, when you look at how to value a project, you need to look at the ecosystem and the DApps that are being launched on it. So because each of these DApps will have a community behind them, which brings users, which brings network adoption. So when you look at a project like Moonriver that has over 80 plus integrations, 80 plus DApps, ask yourself, what does that mean, right? How much activity does that bring? How much TVL does that cause, right? This is something called network effect. So a network effect is described as an economic effect that describes a product or service where additional users add value to the network. So when this network effect is present, each new user adds value to the product by entering into the network. This in turn incentivizes new users to join the network, adding more value to it. So keep in mind that Moonriver and GLMR or Moonbeam are layer ones. So this means applications and projects are deployed onto this network, of which Polkadot and Kusama are the underlying layer zeros. So if you look at Phantom, AVAX, Solana, Luna, how did these grow? They had applications built on them, which brought users, which brought activity, which brought TVL, which caused price to explode. So go do yourself a favor. We're going to go look at some of those coins now, but you'll see at the serious price performance that they had in the past year, we are still in the same layer one narrative. So these coins don't play games. They're literally the best performers in the entire industry. And so I want to stress this. I'm not shilling my own bags. I'm trying to say I know how it feels to look back on a graph and be like, wow, I should have invested into this a year ago. If only I put money in when the chart was, back there. So I've learned these lessons so you don't have to. So look at it from that point as we now dive into the charts. So we've seen Moonriver here. Just to recap its performance, it had that first major leg up, push back up, had the Binance listing, came back down, and now it's been consolidating. So I want to draw your attention to this. So we had our first push up, and then we consolidated before our second leg up. Now, if you look at Moonbeam, and you look at what's happening here, so we had our initial launch, which was pretty crazy, and we had our first leg up. So I call this our first leg up. Now we had the consolidation, and now I'm expecting that second leg up that will look something like this. So it'll look something like that. Sorry for that line, but think about it like this. First leg up, consolidate, second leg up, right? So firstly, that's what I expect from Moonbeam. Now, when we look at Moonriver, just in the short term, what I'd like it to do is it consolidated in this channel, then it broke below here. And what I think is going to happen is it's going to push back up, come back into this channel, test the upper bound, potentially get rejected, and then hopefully from there, we'll start pushing up to reclaim firstly this level over here. So firstly get back to around 240, and then after that we can push back on further up here to around 400, and after that hopefully we can push upwards, put in new all-time highs. So just to recap, firstly we want to reclaim $240. After that we should have blue skies all the way to around $400, and then after that we hopefully break all-time highs and then we push up. Now when looking at GLMR or Moonbeam, a similar pattern, we can just look at Moonriver and expect something similar, because once Bitcoin turns bullish, right? Bitcoin's just playing a bit in the sandbox here around $43,000. Once Bitcoin can make a clear decisive break upwards, I think we'll start seeing that second leg being pushed up here. I don't really know how high it can go, but I'm hoping for it to push to around $35, $40 before consolidating back down and seeing what happens with the market after that. So moving on to staking. So on Moonriver, the staking APY is around 23 to 28%. It depends on the collator you're with. And it takes 2 days to unbond. So it used to be 2 hours, but they had a on-chain governance decision, and it's now 2 days. And you get your rewards every 2 hours. Now, comparing that to Moonbeam, your APY will settle around 15, 20, 25%. We don't know exactly, but it should be around there. Currently, APYs are quite high, but that's just because people need we just launched, so people need to stake their coins. And in this case, it takes 7 days to unbond. So once again, look at this as the industry grade, look at Moonriver as that first mover advantage, and look at the benefits that it holds for you as a staker, right? A few percentage points makes a big difference. And the nice thing is you don't have any slashing risk on these networks, which is amazing. So just to end off here, comparing BeamRiver or Moonbeam and Moonriver to AVAX, ETH 2.0 and Phantom, Derek made it clear that there's no reason why GLMR and Mover can't get as big as other L1s, right? He's seeing the developer traction. He's seeing the quality projects being launched on these chains. And he believes that EVM compatibility should almost be a given by now, right? That shouldn't be your key offering. It's what you do over and above that. So he's seeing a lot of other chains, like, I don't want to mention names, hashtag Solana, but saying our TPS is higher, our consensus mechanism is better. I think Solana is great, but I just want to show you that you need to look at what else are they offering you. What type of interoperability are these L1s offering you, so that when you combine the thinking of an interoperable future and apps that span multiple blockchains, that is what distinguishes Mover and GLMR from the rest. They can literally do everything all these other L1s can do and more. So it's going to be very hard for the other chains to do something similar. Cool, so just to quickly look over the roadmap and what to expect in the future. So at the top half, you can see Moonriver, and we are currently in Q1 of 2022. So currently it's ecosystem deployments. There's NFTs, gaming, DeFi project developments, and additional lending and borrowing project deployments. So once again, look at how much earlier this stuff is coming on Moonriver, whereas on Moonbeam in Q1 in 2022, we're still sort of looking at ecosystem deployments. So things will be a little bit slower on there. But once again, look at the difference in the coins and allocate accordingly to both. So expect huge network growth, huge adoption in 2022 for both projects, and specifically look at the upcoming NFT gaming DeFi projects, hashtag remark. That's going to be a big one. Cool, guys. So just to conclude, so again, I want to state both tokens will do very well in 2022. They cater for one community. It's not like the KSM and DOT community is split or divided. They're just developing their own personality as they grow. So allocate to both. I believe they will crush it this year. So, my advice is to keep stacking, but remember, it's not financial advice. So act accordingly. Cheers. Have a good evening.